Hey there, it's Chandri from Inclusive Matters. Why don't we connect some dots together by relating how D&I connects with business results in uncertain times? Now, here you'll see two companies. The first is a German company, and it partnered with the American pharmaceutical company Pfizer to create a vaccine against COVID 19. You're thinking, now I know what we're talking about. Moderna is another American company that brought a COVID vaccine to the market. In terms of diversity, the demographic makeup of these two companies is similar in that their co founders are multicultural, either first or second generation nationals. The co founder and chief medical officer of BioNTech is a woman, and over 50% of BioNTech's employees are women. Moderna's leadership boasts 39% women at its executive level. So there's no lack of diversity for these companies. But how well are they leveraging these diverse experiences and unique characteristics of their teams? For BioNTech, a German company partnering with an American company doesn't seem all that extraordinary, but we cannot underestimate the international mindsets that are involved. The founders of BioNTech are of Turkish descent, so they experience life with both German and Turkish values. The CEO of Pfizer is Greek American and also has experienced life from two cultures. So imagine when these leaders come together, they're interchangeably using four nationalities and cultures as they navigate their business. Moderna promoted itself as the company that would get the COVID vaccine to the market first. And teams that have that kind of mandate and it's about speed can easily overlook factors or warning signs that could be obvious to others, especially during times of uncertainty and crisis. An example of this is demonstrated in how these two companies tested their vaccine. BioNTech proactively trialed its vaccine throughout the Western Hemisphere. Of the 42,000 test subjects, 40% were ethnically or racially diverse. And in the American market, 30% of the test group were racially diverse. So this active inclusion, as I call it, was built into BioNTech's testing process early on. Now think back to those founders developing their businesses and making space for the multicultural experiences, questioning what's important here in this market and regulation wise, what do we have to pay attention to? No question was probably off limits because there was unfamiliarity with certain things. So things were having to move at a breakneck speed, but there was still time to ask the questions to figure out what was missing. Moderna was also trialing the vaccine, and this is where the plot thickens. While Moderna was in the midst of its testing, the Food and Drug Administration demanded that Moderna slow down their process in order to include more minority groups in the testing environment. Moderna was simply not testing enough people from the various demographic sectors. Blacks and African Americans make up 13% of the US population, yet only 7% of Moderna's test population was from that group. Moderna had to recruit more diverse test subjects before any approval process could take place. This made headlines in the United States, especially because there was this race to the finish. And the suppliers who were hired to carry out the testing on behalf of Moderna were in the news defending their implicitly biased recruiting processes. One CEO, as you can see here, complained that it was notoriously difficult to enroll volunteers from diverse backgrounds. That might well have been that particular CEO's experience, but it's an often used excuse. I hear many executive leaders lament that their company just can't find the talent. There are no women out there or no people of color. They're not applying to the job, so they just must not be there in this market. Yet BioNTech had already done sufficient testing and completed the process with more diversity in their testing environment than Moderna. This is why Moderna doesn't get a check mark from me here. All right. So, what difference did this delay really mean for these companies in the end? And then you might be thinking, Chandri, and how are we actually connecting these acts of inclusion or lack thereof to these companies' bottom line results? Well, Pfizer's vaccine was the first to be approved in the US and EU. Moderna gained approval 5 months later. That meant the contracts went out first to BioNTech and Pfizer. The trust was built faster with BioNTech and Pfizer than it was for Moderna. Now, I posted about BioNTech and their acts of inclusion on LinkedIn just as the Pfizer vaccine had been approved. And the concrete evidence of their inclusive leadership would only be believed, really, when the companies reported their revenues for 2021. Show me the money is what I often hear. Well, the Pfizer vaccine had revenues of $36.7 billion, whereas Moderna had $18.5 billion. Diversity and inclusion directly affected the business results for these companies. Now, how do these points connect for your organization? Remember, everything we do either builds up or erodes inclusion in our environment.